If you are listening to me right now, which I know you are, you're hearing my voice through this device. And the world of audio is dependent upon this exchange. And we're going to be speaking with someone who's an executive producer of an award-winning podcast, and she understands the power of audio, the power of words, how we use our voices. And she has been able to create multiple shows. I don't even know how many thousands of shows already for a podcast called The Hidden Brain, which I have listened to for years. And I'm thrilled to be able to be in conversation with Tara about this, because as a lover of audio, I know that to have a successful experience with audio, you need to be really thinking about how brains work. And not to be so meta, but The Hidden Brain is about the brains and about how we experience life internally. And the premise of The Hidden Brain is really about, we can explore the world through airplanes and hiking and car rides, but how about going inside our own mechanisms to understand who we are and how we're wired? It's a really excellent podcast, and I'm happy to share the link with you guys. But today we're going to explore the world of audio production and producing shows and how to create and structure a show over years, which is fascinating to me. Tara, thank you so much for being on Swell. I'm really curious about the moments in your days where you're saying, wow, I'm doing this and I'm hitting a moment here and I've got to make a big decision. So I want to go right into decision making as an executive producer. You make decisions all the time. And when did you start realizing in your career that you were up for this task? I know our careers are always an evolution, but to be an executive producer, you have to be able to make decisions about content, about timing, about releasing stuff, about roadmaps in terms of coverage, what you're going to be focusing on this month or that year. At what point in your career did you say, I'm up for this task and I'm ready to go? Can you give us a little background about how your career evolved? Because I know a lot of people in this space particularly are really jazzed about podcasting and about creating story, but we're all at different stages in our career. So can you talk about the early times when you really thought, I'm up for this, this is who I am, and I'm going to jump in? And how are you feeling now in terms of being an executive producer and head of content for Hidden Brain Media?
Hi, Deborah, and hello to everyone who might be listening. I'm so glad to be able to join you today. Thank you for the question, Deborah, about how we make decisions about what we cover on Hidden Brain and in journalism more broadly. I think it's a really deep and interesting question that is one that you face from the very first day you choose to become a journalist, because fundamentally, when you work on your first story as a reporter, you're making decisions about whose story gets to be told and how you're going to tell that story. And that's a decision process that comes with a lot of responsibility. And there's no one way to answer that question. So that's something I've been grappling with, for many, many years, from, my very first internship at a little newspaper called the Catskill Mountain News, where I grew up in upstate New York, which sadly no longer exists, to working as a reporter for the Boston Globe, where I was covering crime, covering education, state politics, and every day I didn't know what my assignment was going to be often until my editor gave it to me, but then it was up to me to think about who were the people to be featured and the voices to be included. So as I've gone through my career, that decision-making process has gotten more complicated. I worked for a show at the public radio station in Washington, D.C. It's called WAMU is that station. And I worked for a show called Metro Connection, which featured a number of reporters every week reporting around a specific theme. And so I had to choose each week what the theme was going to be that the reporters were going to focus on, and then help them to figure out the best story to tell around that theme. So that was sort of a more complex decision-making process to work on that show. And then when I joined Hidden Brain, I would say decision-making and figuring out what topics to cover has become even more complicated because we're a team of 9. So I'm overseeing the work of our team as our researchers are working to figure out the topics that they want to cover. They're consulting with our host, Shankar Vedantam, on that. And my role as executive producer is to look at what they are choosing to focus on and then think about when is the best time to bring this conversation to our audience. Is there a larger theme around different episodes that is worth exploring? And we do a lot of sort of package series for our audiences. The one that we've been doing for the longest is called You 2.0, which is a summer series that we do that is about self-exploration, understanding the self and people around you. And we've since expanded into other types of series. So we have one that we're just finishing up this week around happiness, looking at the question of what it is that makes us happy and how we maintain happiness across the work of different researchers. So figuring out those sort of bigger themes is part of my job. And that really relies on having been on the show for a number of years, sort of having the catalog of episodes that we've worked on in my brain and figuring out the way to do that most effectively. And I would say it's a work in progress every day as a journalist, figuring out how to cover what we cover and how to bring the best content to our audience.
Hey, Tara, so good to hear your voice. Thank you for being here on Swell. And I love sort of looking at your life in terms of like dots on a map, and each dot represents a different role you played. And in that role, you had to kind of procure some more skill sets around decision-making and output. And here you are working with 9 people who all have their own strengths, and you have to manage their proclivities towards what they want to be focusing on, and then balancing that out with what you've already done and what the future is demanding of you. And I know that, being relevant is really important to everybody, but there's also some times when we want to push people to go towards something that they might not think about listening to, but you want to get them there. I know for me, like you talked about the happiness focus, I have to catch up now. I want to go back to Hidden Brain and listen to those, because that puts a smile on my face. But I'm sure at this stage in your career, you want to push the boundaries and you want to make sure you're covering stuff that really stretches us. Which leads me to my next question, which has to do with audience reaction. How do you balance audience reaction to being resolute about wanting something to be in your roadmap, even if you think that people are not vibing with it? How do you balance that? And do you have an assessment every 6 weeks or 6 months where you say, well, here's the response we're getting from people, and because of that we're going in this direction? How much does the audience voice impact how you program Hidden Brain?
Hi, Deborah. Thanks so much for another great question. The short answer is that we think about our audience with everything that we do on Hidden Brain, from story selection to the way we write our episodes and the promise that we aim to tell listeners that they're going to receive when they listen to our show. That's something we really try to do within the first 3 minutes or so of hearing an episode, that you get a sense of what you're going to be hearing and what you're going to be getting out of it in the next 45 or 50 minutes. And throughout the whole process of how we craft stories, we're thinking about how the audience is going to discover the ideas and the insights with us, how they're going to unfold in their mind, how they're going to engage with those ideas. So the listener is really, really important to every aspect of the work that we do. And, I think that's partly of reality of being a podcast. We're an opt-in medium. People choose deliberately or not to consume what we're making. So it's really important to keep the audience in mind. It's also a really critical part of our mission at Hidden Brain to provide work that is thought-provoking and interesting to people, but also really actionable in their own lives. We really want to bring research that people might not otherwise encounter in their day-to-day lives and connect people to that research and give them new ways of thinking about their own lives. And one of the most gratifying parts of the work that we do is hearing from people who have taken a lot of the ideas that we explore on the show and use them to think about their own lives in new ways. And that is a real responsibility and very humbling to us, and something that we take very seriously on the show. So yeah, we really love and respect our audience.
I can't imagine how diverse the audience is, because your topics are so diverse, and it's so great that you're just able to connect and understand and create for this diversity. And I also think part of the challenge must be responding to demands and staying relevant. One of my pet peeves about great content on the web is that it gets lost really fast. And you have all been doing work to create amazing episodes, I think, since 2016. That's a long time. Do you ever recycle things as an executive producer, looking at the big picture, looking at what's going on and not wanting to, do things twice? Do you ever recycle things and then kind of bump them into a new conversation somehow? How do you leverage older content, and how do you make sure it doesn't get lost? One of the things I feel is frustrating as a consumer is dates for me don't matter. Like, if something is amazing and it was 2018, I still want to listen to it. But I think a lot of people are always wanting to hear the next best thing. And sometimes some of that great content just gets lost. Do you have a system with Hidden Brain, where you say, guys, we had this great episode back in the day. Do you rerun them? Do you repurpose them? Do you reinvigorate them by inviting the guests back? I'm sure there's best practices around how to leverage older content so that people could enjoy it again. And do you feel happy about the archival process by which you place episodes? Do you think the search is appropriate in the format that Spotify and Apple Podcasts allow for us to search? How do you manage archiving content and leveraging it into the current production cycle?
Great question about using archival material. And it's true, Hidden Brain has been around since 2016, so we have a really large archive at this point for our show of hundreds of different episodes that we can pull out and put back into our podcast feed or on our radio show and bring back for our listeners. The other benefit of the type of coverage we do is that it tends to be pretty evergreen. I think we were interested in issues related to our relationships or related to how we think about ourselves, how we interact with our loved ones. Those were interesting in 2017, and they'll be interesting in 2025 and interesting in, for many years to come. So, there's never really an expiration date on a lot of the topics that we cover on the show, which is helpful. We do try to curate our archive for our listeners to help people find the content that we think will be most useful to them. One of the ways that we do that is through our various 2.0 series. I mentioned our Happiness 2.0 series that we just finished. The original version of our 2.0 series that we did was U 2.0, and we've now expanded that quite a bit. Happiness was our most recent one, but we also are doing one around success later this spring, and I think we're going to do one on the topic of healing in the fall. So, after you've been a show for a number of years, you start to see themes that run across a lot of different areas of research and ideas that recur in different ways, in different experiments that people do. And so bringing those different ideas together in a series is really interesting because it helps people to approach really universal questions or problems that they have in their lives through multiple different ways of grappling with the issue. So curation is a really important part of our work and helping listeners to access our work. But yeah, it definitely is daunting when there is a large archive to sort of know where to start or, how to proceed. But I would just encourage people to, read the titles and the episode descriptions and just dive in, at least with our show. There's not really one right or wrong way to listen to the show. Thanks.
I bet you see tons of cycles of themes that apply to different seasons, different years. It's like fashion in a way. Skirts come up and skirts go down, and it's you probably have a really interesting perspective based on the work you do. It's really fascinating. I wanted to ask you, since we're still talking, and we'll go on as much as you'll like, and hopefully some new voices will pop in. I wanted to ask you about decisions people make to use YouTube for their podcasts and also do live shows. I'll go to YouTube first. I actually don't know if you guys have a YouTube version of your podcast. And if you do, what made you decide to do that? And if not, what made you not to decide to do that? And what do you think about the trend of making things always visual? Does it contribute, do you think, to a podcast, or does it detract, or is it just a lateral move? And the second part of my question is, I, in my podcast career, did two series that were live, meaning not live to tape. They were live in front of an audience. So I chose spaces where people can convene, and I leveraged those people to help build content and build questions to fortify the show itself. The most recent one I did was a podcast on menopause for a brand that I was working with, and we did 3 shows in Los Angeles that were open to women to come and to listen to a 3-part series. And it was amazing because they had questions I never would have asked, questions I never would have had the courage to ask, actually, because it takes a certain lived experience to talk about, dry vaginal walls and say it with a confidence and a curiosity that these people just said, hey, my name is so-and-so, and this is what I'm dealing with. And the guests were equally emboldened to be candid and frank and really amazing. And I could not have done that with a taped show. Have you done live versions of Hidden Brain, and how did that go? Or do you think it's gimmicky? What's your thoughts? Thanks.
I am definitely going to have to go find that show about menopause, Deborah. It sounds pretty spicy and great. I am a former live talk show producer myself. I worked for 6 years at WAMU, the NPR station in D.C., on a program called the Kojo Namdi Show. Kojo is a really beloved, longtime journalist covering D.C., covering national and international news. And for 6 years, I was a live show producer on his show that ran every day from 12 to 2. And we also did a number of events in the community where we would go out to different parts of our region and have guests in the audience. So I really love live shows and the sort of open possibility of the different kinds of directions that an audience can take a conversation. That's always really exciting to be a part of. Hidden Brain has done some live shows. When we, before the pandemic, when we were at NPR, we did a number of shows for audiences there. Shankar has done live events in different places around the country. He actually was scheduled to do one the weekend of March 15th, 2020, which of course ended up getting canceled just a couple of days before it was scheduled to happen because of the pandemic. So live events are something that I think we all enjoy and hope to do some more of in the future. I think right now our focus is a little bit for the coming months on putting out as many new episodes as we can for our listeners. So we're really focused on finding great topics for the show and organizing our production schedule to bring as many new conversations to our audience as we can this year. So probably I think live events won't be on the docket for us, but we will certainly keep our audience posted if that changes, because I think it is something that we all really enjoy quite a bit. So stay tuned. Oh, and Deborah, I just realized I didn't answer your question about YouTube. YouTube, I think, is a huge topic of conversation in the podcasting world these days. Obviously, such an important platform for so many podcasts and a real vehicle for discovery for podcasts. So a really important platform. It's something that we've been looking at closely. For us, our show, a number of podcasts that rely on the RSS model to provide their show to their audience. That hasn't always been compatible with YouTube, but that is changing. They recently announced that YouTube Music is going to be compatible with RSS. Sort of a technical behind-the-scenes thing that just means it'll be easier for big shows with existing arrangements with advertising companies to be able to work with their advertising providers and also use RSS to provide the show to audiences. So that's a very sort of long-winded way of saying YouTube is something that we're looking at to see if it works for us as a show. And we will certainly let listeners know if it's a platform that we decide to be on in the future.
Hey, Tara, thanks so much for such a comprehensive answer. And I know when there's a will, there's a way anyway. People who love your show find it. Tops of mountains, bottom of oceans. They're just going to be able to plug in because it's so great. Thank you for this time that you spent with us. And anyone who's intrigued by Tara's work, all you got to do is go to the top of this swell and click into Hidden Brain, and you'll see the world of that incredible series, both archived stuff and then the stuff coming up and what's happening now. And it's just really amazing. And hopefully we'll be able to have some conversations here about some of the episodes, because some of them are so provocative and so delightful, and you just want to keep on riffing about them and talk to like-minded people. So hopefully that'll happen here. But it's just a joy to have you. And for those people out there who are looking to become producers, this is like such a masterclass. So thank you so much.